What Everybody is Saying, by Joe Navarro with Marvin Carlins. Introduction. The man sat calmly at the end of the long table, answering the FBI agent's questions with a steady voice. He wasn't a major suspect in the murder case. His story checked out, his alibi was believable, and he seemed sincere. But something wasn't quite right. The agent, a man who had spent his life reading the silent language of the body, decided to press on. He began a series of seemingly hypothetical questions. If you had committed this crime, the agent asked, would you have used a gun? The man shook his head. No. If you had committed this crime, would you have used a knife? Again, a calm denial. The agent continued down the list. If you had committed this crime, would you have used an ice pick? And that's when it happened. A movement so small, so fleeting, that almost anyone else would have missed it. As the words ice pick left the agent's lips, the suspect's eyelids came down hard, like tiny shutters closing against an unwanted light. They stayed closed for a fraction of a second longer than a normal blink, and then opened as the next weapon was named. In that single, almost invisible gesture, everything changed. The ice pick was indeed the murder weapon, a detail the police had kept from the public. Only the killer would know its significance. And in that moment of unconscious reaction, the man's body had confessed what his mouth was determined to deny. That minor suspect instantly became the primary person of interest, and he later confessed to the crime. The agent who saw that tiny signal, that flicker of truth, was Joe Navarro. For 25 years, he worked as an FBI counterintelligence special agent, a supervisor who specialized in catching master spies and dangerous criminals by mastering the secrets of nonverbal communication. He wasn't a mind reader. He was a body reader. He understood that long before we had language, our bodies evolved a sophisticated system for communicating our true thoughts, feelings, and intentions, and that ancient system is still running inside every single one of us. In his landmark book, What Everybody is Saying, Navarro pulls back the curtain on this hidden world. He teaches us that our bodies are like billboards, constantly broadcasting messages for anyone who knows how to look. While our words can be carefully crafted, debated, and even used to deceive, our body language often tells the unfiltered truth. Today, we are going to embark on a journey into this silent language. By the end of our time together, you'll have a powerful new lens through which to see the world. You'll learn why the feet are the most honest part of the body, how to spot the difference between a real smile and a fake one, and how to tell if someone is truly comfortable in your presence or secretly wants to leave. This isn't about learning tricks to manipulate people. It's about developing a deeper understanding, a form of practical empathy that will enrich every interaction you have for the rest of your life. Book summary. To truly understand what somebody is saying, we first need to understand how our brain works. You see, we don't just have one brain, but three, all working together. There's the newest part, the thinking brain, or neocortex. This is the part that does math, writes poetry, and plans for the future. It's brilliant, creative, and it's also the part of the brain that lies. It's the part that lets us tell a friend we love their new haircut when we secretly don't, or allows a suspect to say, I didn't do it, with a straight face. But beneath that thinking brain lies a much older, more primal system, the limbic brain. This is the part of our brain that's been in charge of our survival for millions of years. It's our emotional center, and it operates reflexively, instantaneously, and without conscious thought. It's always on, constantly scanning the world for threats and rewards. And because it doesn't stop to think or filter, the limbic brain is what Joe Navarro calls the honest brain. It's the source of all those gut feelings and unfiltered reactions that our bodies display. The nervous sweating of a terrorist trying to cross the border, the bouncing feet of a poker player who just got a winning hand, that's the limbic brain broadcasting the truth, whether the person wants it to or not. This honest brain has a very specific, three-step protocol for dealing with any perceived threat, a survival script that is hardwired into every one of us. You've probably heard of the fight or flight response. Well, that's only 2/3 of the story, and it's backward. The real sequence, the one that has kept our species alive for millennia, is freeze, flight, and fight. The freeze response is our first line of defense. Think of a deer in the headlights. A million years ago on the African savanna, our ancestors learned that predators are attracted to movement. By holding perfectly still, they could become nearly invisible. We still do this today. When you're caught doing something you shouldn't, what's your first reaction? You freeze. During a stressful interrogation, a suspect might lock their feet around the legs of their chair, holding perfectly still as if in an ejector seat. Sometimes it's more subtle. A person might just hold their breath, or their shoulders will slowly rise towards their ears, making their neck seem to disappear. Navarro calls this the turtle effect. It's a subconscious attempt to become smaller, to hide in plain sight, and it's a powerful sign of weakness and insecurity. If freezing doesn't work and the threat is still there, the brain's next command is flight. The goal is simple: create distance. In the modern world, we can't always just run away from a tense meeting or an awkward conversation, so our limbic brain has adapted. We create distance in smaller ways. We might lean our torso away from someone we dislike. We might angle our feet toward the nearest exit, a clear intention cue that our body wants to leave, even if our torso is politely facing the person we're talking to. We might even use objects, a purse, a notebook, a pillow, to create a physical barrier between ourselves and the source of our discomfort. These are all modern-day versions of running away. Only when freezing and fleeing have failed does the brain resort to its final tactic: fight. This isn't just about physical violence. In our world, a fight can be a heated argument, filled with insults and personal attacks. It's about asserting dominance. You'll see people puff out their chests, just like gorillas, trying to make themselves look bigger and more intimidating. They'll plant their feet wide apart in a territorial display, claiming their ground. These are all ancient, aggressive signals that tell you a situation is escalating and trouble may be on the horizon. Now, after any of these limbic responses, after a moment of stress, fear, or anxiety, our brain immediately tries to restore calm. And it does this through something Navarro identifies as one of the most important concepts in body language: pacifying behaviors. These are the little things we do, almost always unconsciously, to soothe ourselves. A child sucks their thumb. As adults, we adopt more socially acceptable versions. We might chew on a pen, play with our hair, or rub our forehead. These pacifying behaviors are incredibly reliable indicators of stress. When you see someone do one, you should immediately ask yourself, what just happened to cause that? A question is asked, and the person immediately touches their neck. A topic is raised, and someone begins gently stroking their own arm. That's the limbic brain saying, "That made me uncomfortable. Please calm me down." One of the most common pacifiers is neck touching. Our necks are full of nerve endings that, when stimulated, can actually slow our heart rate and calm us down. Men tend to rub the back of their neck or adjust their tie. Women, very specifically, will often touch or cover the little dimple at the base of their throat, called the suprasternal notch. This is an extremely powerful tell. Navarro tells a chilling story of questioning the mother of a dangerous fugitive. He asked her, "Is your son in the house?" And as she said no, her hand went straight to her neck dimple. He asked again, in a different way. And again, her hand flew to her neck to pacify her stress. Her body was revealing the anxiety her words were trying to hide. He knew her son was there, and sure enough, they found him hiding in a closet. Another powerful pacifier is what Navarro calls the leg cleanser. When a person is seated and feeling stressed, you might see them place their hands on their thighs and slide them down toward their knees, as if wiping off sweaty palms. Because this often happens under a table, it goes unnoticed, but it's a very accurate indicator of discomfort. Recognizing these pacifiers, neck touching, face rubbing, leg cleansing, ventilating a shirt collar, is like gaining a secret window into a person's emotional state. They tell you, in real time, what topics are causing them stress. They aren't necessarily a sign of lying, but they are a guaranteed sign of discomfort. And for a master observer, that's where the real investigation begins. Before we can start decoding these signals in the wild, however, we need a set of rules, a framework for observation. Navarro provides what he calls the 10 Commandments for observing and decoding nonverbals, and they are the foundation for everything else. First, and most importantly, be a competent observer. As the great Sherlock Holmes said, "You see, but you do not observe." Most of us go through life looking but not truly seeing. Observation is a skill, like a muscle. It must be consciously and deliberately exercised. Second, always observe in context. Someone shivering with their arms crossed might be uncomfortable with your conversation, or they might just be cold. Shaking after a car accident is expected. Shaking when asked a simple question is not. Context is everything. Third, learn to recognize universal behaviors. These are tells that are the same for almost everyone. When someone presses their lips together so they seem to disappear, it's a universal sign that they are troubled and something is wrong. Fourth, alongside universal tells, learn to spot idiosyncratic behaviors. These are signals unique to a particular person. Your friend might scratch his head every time he's about to lie. That's his personal tell, and you only learn it through repeated observation. This leads to the fifth commandment: establish their baseline behaviors. Before you can spot what's abnormal, you have to know what's normal for that person. How do they normally sit? Where do they usually place their hands? What does their face look like when they're relaxed versus stressed? Without a baseline, you have no way to measure change. Sixth, always look for multiple tells, or clusters of behaviors. One signal might be misleading, but if you see 3 or 4 different body cues all pointing to the same emotion, like crossed arms, a torso lean, and feet pointed toward the exit, you can be much more confident in your reading. Seventh, and this is crucial, look for changes in behavior. A sudden shift from a relaxed posture to a tense one is far more significant than the posture itself. Navarro shares a powerful story of a young boy at a family reunion who had always greeted his uncle with a big hug, but on this one occasion, he suddenly froze and refused to go near him. This deviation from his baseline was a massive red flag, suggesting that something negative had happened between them since their last meeting. The change is the message. Eighth, learn to detect false or misleading signals. This takes practice, but the book teaches us how to spot the difference between a genuine smile that engages the whole face and a fake one that only involves the mouth. Ninth, when in doubt, simplify. Ask yourself, is this a behavior of comfort or discomfort? Contentment, happiness, and relaxation show up as comfort cues. Stress, anxiety, and fear show up as discomfort cues. Almost every nonverbal signal can be sorted into one of these 2 buckets. This is the master key. And finally, the 10th commandment: be subtle about it. Your goal is to observe people without them knowing it. Staring at someone will make them uncomfortable and change their behavior, polluting your observations. A master observer is a discreet observer. With these rules in hand, we can begin our tour of the body, and we're going to do it in a very specific order, from the most honest part of the body to the least. If I were to ask you what the most honest part of the body is, you might guess the eyes. But you'd be wrong. The most honest parts of our body, according to decades of FBI experience, are our feet and legs. Why? Because for millions of years, our survival depended on our legs and feet reacting instantly to threats without conscious thought. They had to be ready to run or kick at a moment's notice. While we've been taught since childhood to control our facial expressions, to put on a poker face, most of us pay no attention to our feet. They are the part of our body furthest from our conscious awareness, and so they often reveal the purest, most unfiltered intentions of our limbic brain. When we are happy or excited about something, we get what Navarro calls happy feet. Our feet will literally wiggle or bounce with joy. He tells a great story of watching a poker player on TV who was dealt a fantastic hand. Above the table, his face was a stoic mask of indifference, but the camera showed that under the table, his feet were bouncing and wiggling uncontrollably, like a child about to go to Disney World. His feet were shouting, "I'm going to win," while his face was whispering, "I've got nothing." The direction our feet point is also a massive clue. We subconsciously point our feet in the direction we want to go. If you're talking to someone and their torso is facing you, but their feet are angled toward the door, their body is telling you they want to leave. It's a powerful intention cue. If you approach 2 people talking and want to join, watch their feet. If they only turn their torsos to greet you, but their feet stay planted, they are politely signaling they'd rather not be interrupted. But if they pivot their whole bodies, feet included, to open up their circle, it's a genuine welcome. Leg crossing is another surprisingly honest tell. When we are standing, crossing one leg over the other puts us off balance. Our limbic brain will only allow us to do this when we feel completely safe and comfortable. The moment a stranger steps into an elevator, a person standing with their legs crossed will almost always instinctively uncross them and plant both feet firmly on the ground, preparing for any potential threat. So, if you see two people talking and they both have their legs crossed, it's a very strong sign they are completely at ease with each other. Moving up the body, we come to the torso. Our torso houses our most vital organs, so our brain is highly motivated to protect it. When we feel comfortable and safe, we engage in what's called ventral fronting. We expose our vulnerable front side, our ventral side, to people we like and trust. Lovers lean in close across a table, exposing their torsos to each other. But when we feel threatened or dislike someone, we do the opposite, ventral denial. We turn slightly away, shielding our front. A couple whose relationship is souring will subconsciously start to angle their torsos away from each other, even when sitting side by side. When we can't physically lean away, we create a torso shield. We might suddenly cross our arms, or use a backpack or a stack of books to form a barrier. Buttoning a suit jacket can be a subtle form of shielding, closing off our ventral side to someone who is making us uncomfortable. Next are the arms. Our arms are our first line of defense. When we're happy and confident, our arms swing freely and defy gravity. Think of a winning athlete throwing their arms up in victory. That's a universal, high-confidence display. But when we feel sad, defeated, or threatened, our arms become heavy. They might droop at our sides or withdraw completely, folding across our chest in a protective gesture. Navarro points out that abused children often learn to restrict their arm movements in the presence of an abuser, an instinctive limbic attempt to avoid attracting attention. Our arms are also used for powerful territorial displays. Standing with your hands on your hips in the arms akimbo pose is a classic way of asserting dominance and claiming space. It sends a message of authority, which is why you see it so often in police officers and military personnel. Another dominant pose is the hooding effect, where a person leans back in their chair with their hands interlaced behind their head. This makes them look bigger and broadcasts a message of comfort and control. It's a move typically reserved for the highest status person in the room. The hands are next, and they are incredibly expressive. Our brains dedicate a huge amount of processing power to our hands, which is why we're so naturally drawn to watch them when someone is speaking. Because of this, hiding your hands, by putting them in your pockets or under a table, creates an immediate sense of distrust in the listener. We are hardwired to want to see a person's hands to feel comfortable. One of the most powerful high-confidence signals you can make with your hands is steepling, touching the spread fingertips of both hands together to form what looks like a church steeple. Lawyers, judges, and executives use this gesture constantly because it projects extreme confidence and certainty in one's thoughts. If you see someone steepling while they talk, you know they feel they are in a position of strength. Conversely, when we lose confidence, our hands often betray us. A steeple might collapse into interlaced fingers or hand-wringing, a classic sign of stress and anxiety. Thumbs are also surprisingly loud communicators. When we feel confident, we tend to display our thumbs, often hooking them in our pockets with the thumb sticking out. It's a high-status, gravity-defying gesture. But when we feel insecure, we do the opposite. We hide our thumbs by putting them inside our pockets, with only the fingers hanging out. This is a very common low-confidence display that projects weakness and uncertainty. Finally, we arrive at the face, the mind's canvas. It's the most expressive part of our body, capable of over 10,000 expressions. But it's also the part we've been most trained to use for deception. Still, the truth often leaks out. The eyes are particularly revealing. When we see something we like, our pupils dilate. When we see something we don't like, they constrict. This is a completely involuntary limbic response. Navarro used this to catch the co-conspirators in an espionage case. He showed the spy a series of index cards with names on them. On two of the names, The spy's pupils instantly constricted. His brain was registering a threat, revealing the identities he was trying so hard to protect. Eye blocking is another powerful tell. When we hear something we dislike or disagree with, we will often instinctively squint, close our eyes for a prolonged moment, or even shield them with a hand. This is the brain's attempt to block out the negative information. It's the nonverbal equivalent of saying, "I don't like what I'm hearing." And then there's the smile. We all know the difference between a real, genuine smile and a fake, polite one. A real smile, a zygomatic smile, involves muscles that pull the corners of the mouth up and crinkles the skin around the eyes. A fake smile, a risorious smile, only pulls the corners of the mouth sideways, and the eyes remain lifeless. Perhaps the most reliable facial cue of stress is lip compression. When we're under pressure, our lips often seem to disappear as we press them together tightly. It's the limbic brain's way of saying shut down, don't let anything in. You'll see this constantly in people testifying before Congress or being questioned in a press conference. It's a rock-solid indicator of negative emotion. Another mouth gesture to watch for is lip pursing. This is when someone puckers their lips, and it almost always means they disagree with what's being said or are considering an alternative to it. When you see a mix of signals on someone's face, if they say "I'm so happy to see you," but their jaw is tight and their smile doesn't reach their eyes, Navarro gives a simple rule. Always trust the negative emotion. The negative reaction is almost always the more honest initial response from the limbic brain, before the thinking brain has time to mask it with a more socially acceptable expression. This brings us to the most challenging topic of all, detecting deception. After spending a career as a human lie detector, Navarro's primary message is one of extreme caution. He states unequivocally, there is no single behavior that is indicative of deception. There is no Pinocchio effect where a liar's nose grows. Many behaviors people mistake for lying, like fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, or sweating, are simply signs of stress. An honest person under the intense pressure of being wrongly accused will look just as guilty as an actual liar. The key, he stresses, is to shift your mindset. Don't look for lies. Look for comfort and discomfort. When you see a cluster of discomfort cues, pacifying behaviors, torso shielding, frozen hands, it doesn't mean the person is lying. It means the topic you just brought up is causing them significant stress. Your job isn't to accuse them of lying. Your job is to get curious. Why did that question cause such a strong reaction? That's the thread you need to pull. By creating a comfortable environment and then carefully observing when discomfort arises, you can gently probe the areas of greatest sensitivity and, eventually, get closer to the truth. Honesty is revealed in comfort, synchrony, and emphasis. Deception is revealed in discomfort, asynchrony, and a lack of genuine emphasis. Commentary. As we draw our journey to a close, it's worth pausing to reflect on the profound shift in perspective this book offers. For most of our lives, we've been trained to listen to words. We analyze them, debate them, and trust them. But Joe Navarro reveals that a second conversation, a much older and more honest one, is happening simultaneously right before our eyes. It's a silent dialogue broadcast by our bodies, and until now, most of us have been deaf to it. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the beautiful simplicity of the comfort/discomfort framework. In a world of complex human psychology, this one principle cuts through the noise. Stop trying to be a human lie detector. Stop looking for deceit. Instead, start looking for ease and distress. When you see comfort, open posture, genuine smiles, relaxed movements, you know you're on solid ground. When you see discomfort, pacifying gestures, blocking behaviors, physical withdrawal, you know there's something more to explore. It transforms observation from an act of judgment into an act of curiosity and empathy. Another core insight is the deep-seated honesty of our limbic brain. In an age where we can carefully curate our words on social media and in emails, it's humbling to be reminded that there is a part of us that cannot lie. Our bodies hold our truths. This knowledge isn't a tool for manipulation, but a bridge to deeper connection. It allows us to sense a friend's unspoken anxiety, to recognize a colleague's genuine enthusiasm, or to feel the subtle shift in a room when a topic becomes tense. It allows us to respond not just to what people say, but to what they truly feel. So, how can you start putting this incredible knowledge into practice today? Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, for the next week, become an observer of baselines. Don't try to read anyone. Just notice. When you're with your family or friends, pay attention to their normal state. How do they usually stand? How much do they gesture with their hands when they're relaxed? You're not looking for secrets. You're just learning their unique nonverbal vocabulary. Second, play the coffee shop game. Find a comfortable spot in a public place and just watch interactions from a distance. Look at people's feet. Are 2 people on a date pointing their feet towards each other? Or is one person's foot angled toward the exit? Watch for torso leans. Notice the difference between a real, eye-crinkling laugh and a polite, social smile. You're simply training your eye to see the patterns that have always been there. Third, in your next important conversation, focus on just one thing: making the other person comfortable. Your goal is to create a space of psychological safety. As you do this, notice what happens to their body language. Watch their posture open up, their gestures become more fluid, and their smile become more genuine. By learning what comfort looks like, you'll be able to spot its absence much more easily. We've journeyed through the main highways of what everybody is saying today, but the real treasures are found on the side roads, in the rich details and fascinating stories that fill every page. A summary is like a map. It shows you the destination, but reading the book is the journey itself. It's where you experience those aha moments that can only come from letting the ideas sink in at your own pace. If anything we've explored has sparked your curiosity and made you look at the world a little differently, I wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an experience that can fundamentally change the way you see every human interaction. Also, if this journey into the silent language of the body has been valuable to you, please take a moment to like this summary and subscribe to Billionaire's Bookshelf. Each week, we dive into another life-changing book, and by subscribing, you ensure you won't miss our next adventure. Let's continue to learn and grow together.